Hello and welcome back to the Macca's Talk Hockey Podcast, the podcast where me and my brother Charlie talk about English ice hockey, specifically the NIHL, the National Ice Hockey League. We're back from our holiday. It's been 2 weeks since we've done our last podcast. We went to America, if you didn't know already. We went to New York City for 5 days and we ended up watching 5 games in 5 days. We'll explain that in a minute. Charlie, before we get onto the holiday, are you all right? I know you've had a long day. You're a bit
I'm
tired.
shattered. I'm jet lagged as mad. I got the least sleep out of everyone. That was my decision. And yeah, going back to work on a Monday morning. Welcome to adult life, Charlie.
Yeah, Dan, are you feeling all right? I know it's only been
Yeah,
a few days.
I'm the same as Charlie. Still not over the jet lag. First day back at work today. Felt like the longest day of my life.
Hey, that's what the benefits are of being a uni student. I could come back. And I had a good day with Mum. We went to Nando's as well. Got some Christmas presents, so that was all right. But the holiday itself, we were meant to only watch 4 games on our little holiday, our little trip. But the great story. So we were on our flight and we realized we were actually going to get into New York City a bit earlier at 5:30. And we had no Wi-Fi. We didn't have any data. We literally couldn't check any of the scores. We didn't know the Wildcats score until this guy on the plane kindly let us search it up on Twitter. And yeah, we literally planned to go to the LA Kings game against the Islanders at the Islanders Stadium. Literally on the plane with no Wi-Fi, didn't we, lads? With like 2 hours before we landed. We got to the airport, and Charlie, go on, explain.
We got to the airport and we were waiting on Dan to check his phone. We found out the arena was 20-minute taxi away. We got into the taxi and we went in as taxi driver. And I got out the taxi. I actually did end up losing my card, but we'll move on from that story. And then I got out and we were at the Islanders arena about an hour after we landed, which was quite phenomenal.
And we had all of our suitcases or bags with us, didn't we, Dan? So we had to get them locked
Yeah,
into the cage.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. But I mean, I think I was the most believing it was going to happen because
Yeah,
both of you were a bit negative about it on the plane in the end, and
yeah,
then we managed to get there. So
yeah. We didn't know how long it was going to take to get to the arena, so how far it was from the airport. We didn't know how long passport control would take. We originally thought the game was starting at 7, but it was actually 7:30. Somehow we found that out with no Wi-Fi. But yeah, we literally got through passport control in about 15 minutes was it? And we were straight out the airport, got the taxi. It was $70 for the taxi. That was probably the most expensive little bit of the trip. Because it was Christmas time, he said. Got to the arena and we ended up watching a game and we'd literally been awake for over 24 hours. So that was great. And then we had 4 other games, 4 brilliant games. 3 of the 5 games went to overtime. Charlie, I'll come to you first. What was your favourite moment / game of the hockey?
My favorite game / moment was 3-2 to the Islanders, or no, 4-2, 4-3 to the Islanders
4-3,
against
yeah.
Toronto.
Yeah.
And John Tavares getting the point was so funny. The toxicity I loved. The feeling and the moment was just so unmatched. And then I actually quite like the fact Islanders just sealed it because it just
overtime they just got it.
summed up the game, and it was a game for me which, out of all 3 games, it's the game where every single period was completely competitive hockey, and you just never knew who was going to win. And as soon as you thought the game was over, I saw a moment of history where Tavares got his 1,000th point.
Yeah, I was going to say, for context, for people listening who don't follow the NHL too much, John Tavares was captain of the Islanders for 8 years, played for them for 8 seasons. He said in an interview that he wouldn't move, and then he ended up moving to Toronto, and he played against the Islanders for Toronto in the Islanders Stadium at the UBS Arena, and he was on 998 points, and there was loads of discussions whether he'd get that 1,000th point at the Islanders Stadium. And Dan, he did it with 6 seconds to spare. You're a Toronto fan. That must have been an amazing moment to see that and capture that in person.
yeah, that was 100% the best moment. Obviously, we didn't win the game, so it wasn't the best game. But the best moment was definitely seeing that go in at the end of the period with like 6 seconds, I think, left. Yeah, it was a really good moment. I made sure I took it all in.
The loudest I've ever heard boos as well. It was just boos all around the rink every time he touched the puck, and then the Islanders showed a graphic despite everyone booing of him getting his 1,000th point, which just kicked it all off. I think there was some fights in the stand. It was pretty nuts. But then, as you said, Charlie, Islanders literally straight from face off in the overtime. Matthews got his shot saved, and they went straight up the other end and scored. Dan, what was your favourite moment?
The favourite moment was obviously the last minute equaliser.
Yeah.
And then I think my favourite game was obviously the Leafs v Rangers when we absolutely pummeled them 7-3.
Yeah, you absolutely battered them, to be fair. And considering you'd lost to the Islanders the day before, to then beat the Rangers was, yeah, it was a great little game for goals. 10 goals in that. My favourite moment, obviously, before the holiday, I wanted to see an overtime. I wanted to see a fight, and I wanted to see a Mika Zibanejad goal. And there was a fight overtime in the first game, and then Zibanejad scored the first goal of the game in the first Rangers game we watched. So that was great. That was probably my favourite moment. And then the Jack Hughes overtime on the last game we watched was quite special. I think that's the loudest the atmosphere was the loudest of the whole trip, that overtime winner from Jack Hughes against Boston. So yeah, those are the hockey games we watched. Charlie, you met some players as well. Go on.
Oh, big Revo. That was sick actually. So me and Dan were strolling to go on the edge because Jack didn't want to go up the edge. So me and Dan were going to the edge. I'm annoyed he didn't come with us because I'd have loved him to meet him. But we saw a couple Toronto fans waiting outside this hotel. And we said, "What's going on?" And they were like, "Oh, Marner, Matthews have already gone, but Nylander's still coming." And we were like, "Oh, that's pretty sick." So we were waiting for some players outside this hotel. And Nylander walked past, and he didn't notice us. And then Reeves walked out, and I said, "Hey, Revo, I grab a photo," and I got a quick snap with Ryan Reeves. And then Dan, do you want to finish off the story?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you just see Nylander come back out. And then yeah, he went straight over to Charlie, got a photo with him. Obviously I got a photo with him in Sweden, so I wasn't too in for the photo, but yeah, it was just such a random thing. We literally just happened to walk past the Toronto Maple Leafs hotel.
And I was at the sports bar watching the football, so I missed that. But I don't like heights, so I didn't really want to go up the edge because yeah, that wouldn't have done my heart rate any good. But yeah, that was good for you, Charlie. You saw Revo, and he's one of your favourite players as well. So that was good.
I've still not met a player better than Malas though.
Malas. Yeah, you had your one of many unpopular opinions in America. We won't go into them, but your unpopular opinion is that Thomas Malazinski would do a better job than Ryan Reeves in the NHL, and he's sticking by it as well.
Back it.
Oh,
no.
Let us know in the comments if you agree with him. They're different players. I know Revo's he's a fighter and he's just a beast, really, but Revo scored a lot of goals in the NHL, so yeah, I don't know about that one. The holiday itself, lads, a good little trip. We saw as much as we could. I know that one night it was absolutely railing it down, and Charlie wanted to explore, but we just left it a couple days, and we still managed to explore Times Square. You got everything you wanted to do, didn't you, Charlie? You did the most exploring out of us, didn't you?
Yeah, I didn't really sleep, to be honest. I woke up about 7 every morning and went to bed about 3. But it was worth it. I definitely want to go back to New York. If anyone knows me, I love talking and I like meeting new people. I like putting myself outside my comfort zone. And New York is about the perfect place for that because everyone is quite friendly, even with the rep of what people say about New York. And I just had the best time ever just chatting to random people, asking people loads of questions. And so it was a fun experience.
Yeah, I'm going to go out there and say it. If I was going to New York and I wasn't watching hockey, I wouldn't go again because I think I've explored it and I've took it all in. It's very busy. There's so many different people, so many cultures, and I think that's amazing. But for me personally, I'd only go again if it was be able to watch the hockey or go somewhere special with someone. I'd much prefer, Dan, and I think you're the same, going to like Canada, somewhere a bit more quieter, a bit of maybe a state like Ottawa or Detroit or Alberta to watch Edmonton or something like that and just watch some hockey. Are you a bit like that, Dan? Because I know we were a bit different to Charlie, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, like I said, I still, even obviously we went to New York and obviously had a really good time.
Holiday,
I still love Toronto and I still love Canada. I definitely want to go back there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a totally different place. Like if you compare the both, it's two different places, and you sort of get what you expect from New York, and you get what you expect from Canada as well. So, but
If you
yeah,
haven't,
it's both were really good fun.
yeah, if you haven't been, I'd definitely go to New York for that first time. I think you need to experience it 100%. But for me, I just prefer going somewhere a bit quieter because it is very, very busy there. But we met some amazing people, as Charlie said. Everyone is really friendly in America, actually, and they talk a lot more than English people would to random people. And we met some this Swiss guy as well, who's a diehard hockey fan. We won't go into it too much, but he flew out to America to watch all the Swiss NHL players. So yeah, we met some really good people, and yeah, it actually it didn't feel like 5 days. It felt a lot longer, I think. So yeah, I definitely do a hockey trip again, lads. I enjoyed that. Onto the NIHL. Should we get straight into the news? Because there was a few news stories while we were away. The first one was Callie Robertson has left the MK Lightning, and we did actually predict that, didn't we, Charlie? We said that there'd be some MK players or an MK player who'd want a bit more game time and not happy with some of the minutes. And he's gone to Solway. He's gone back to Scotland, where he's from. Good move for him, isn't it? And Solway.
Yeah, it's a good signing. I think he was second in power play points last year. So it will help boost the Solway's power play. I think he's going to thrive in Scotland, and never really got the opportunity in MK. Like they can't keep everyone happy. There'll be other players who aren't thriving because they don't get the opportunity as well, and there's other players who do thrive because they do get the opportunity. And Callie Robertson, I saw him playing fourth line. Like he's just not a fourth liner. Like it's as simple as that, and he's going to go get top 6 minutes in Solway and thrive now. So I'm happy for him.
Especially with Stewart coming in, Dan, it kind of because I think he started the season on second line, and then Stewart come in. They rejigged the lines. I think he was on, as Charlie said, third, fourth line. So I think it's the right move for both parties. And then we said at the start, MK, there's going to be a player which moves on, and it's ended up being Callie Robertson.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was going to go to Solway like in the off season. To be
Yeah,
honest, I thought that'd have been a really good move for him. Obviously, both players, both player and team.
yeah.
But yeah, like Charlie said, he's going to do really good in Solway. I think obviously in his home place, he's going to be loving it. He's going to be an impact player for sure in that
Yeah,
team,
yeah.
and he's gonna bolster their lineup straight away. And I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some of the points on his. Has he played yet for him?
I
Or
think he played on the Sunday, but that was literally his first game.
yeah, so I'm not surprised. I won't be surprised if he gets some points in the next game. To be honest, I'm sure he'll make an instant impact.
He's a big player if they want to push for that eighth playoff spot, isn't he? Especially if that stat is true, which I'm sure it is, Charlie, with the power play points. Another bit of news: the GB under 20s, they couldn't quite do it again. They're in the perfect position. Went down to the final game. They needed to beat Korea in normal time. They got that 3-1 lead in Dumfries. But Korea battled back. They got it to 3-3. GB pulled the netminder, but Korea got the empty net goal. Just disappointing again, isn't it, Charlie? So close 2 years in a row, and it's almost like it's rewritten itself, isn't it?
Yeah, not really got much to comment. It'd be nice to get promoted, but we've got a very talented goalie.
Yeah,
A
he
lot
got
of
goalie of the
Swindon,
tournament.
a lot of Swindon players, Ocker Hagen, etc., are performing well. Ollie Undercourt had a good tournament, and Josh Shaw's playing in GB Boys at only 18 years old. So I'm happy from a Swindon fans' point of view that some of the Swindon players are developing through.
Yeah, Dan. Korea a very good side though. Take nothing away from Korea, to be fair. But yeah, it's such a talented bunch of lads. I think a lot of them ain't going to be playing next year now because they'll be a bit too old. So the likes of Hazeldine and Hopkins, I'm not sure if they'll be able to play next year. Because they just get that year older, and Ollie as well. I think that was his last year in the under 20s. So be interesting to see how they line up next year, won't it? But Ben Norton, wow, he got player of the tournament for GB, got goalie of the tournament. We said he's special, isn't he?
Yeah, he really is. And just look through the whole squad, and just look at the potential in every position. And
Yeah,
you can only think that's good things to come for British ice hockey in the future,
yeah,
because they are future GB players, 100%.
yeah. They are our future.
Yeah, and I think no one can complain with the efforts that they put in. the efforts that they put in with their own teams, and the fact that they're willing to play for their country as well at such a young age is just promising for everyone.
Yeah, 100%. The final bit of news. Oh, sorry. Before we get on to the final bit, there was a big fight and scruffle in the Sheffield Steel Dogs Raiders game last night. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. There's videos going all around. Tate Shudra had a fight with Anderson, your boy Charlie. Tate Shudra did comfortably win the fight, but I just want to put out there, by the way, a lot of people mocking Anderson or taking the mick or whatever. I get banter, but anyone who drops the gloves and has a fight, I have respect for him, because it takes balls to drop gloves, as we saw in the Swindon game, which we'll go on to. Someone didn't drop the gloves. So I think anyone who drops the gloves, my respect goes out to them, even if they do end up losing the fight. So respect to Anderson, because he's not the biggest of guys, and he still dropped the gloves. And fair play to Tate Shudra as well. He's only a young lad, and he had a good fight. And then there was so many penalties. Brammer got sent off again. Hayward got a penalty. I think there was a couple of Raiders players who got match penalties as well. So just a bit of mayhem, wasn't it, lads?
Yeah, not a huge fan of this. Personally, I'll say how it is. I'm not a huge fan of it because I don't think it gives a great representation of what our league is. And I don't mind the odd fight to protect your teammate, but it can get petty in games where it becomes silly. And it felt like it was one of them moments where a lot of people got match penalties. And as much as I know Sheffield do love this style of play and they do enjoy it, and so do Romford, I think it lets teams down because it just means players end up being banned for ages.
Especially with the new system.
In the big picture, it don't really help them. Like, I'm happy that I watch a team personally which stays off the fighting. And I know that our team would fight if we needed to. But for Sheffield, they got big 2 points, so they're going to be the ones coming away laughing, and Raiders will be coming away angry. So on Sheffield's point of view, they'll be happy because they beat 9th place and they're in 7th. So
yeah. The final bit of news, we're going to talk about it not too long though. 4,000 Count and put a couple of tweets up this weekend. The first one was a picture of the Basingstoke rink. I think everyone knows how much of a state it is in, Dan. But he put a picture up and there's mold everywhere, and then there's some comments as well about how some of the players have been in the changing rooms and it's just not good, and somehow it's still going with the Buffalo, but it doesn't look good for the future of Basingstoke, and nothing are doing anything about it. And I know Banners on the Wall put something out there and he was very angry, and rightly so. I'm sure you're absolutely fuming as well that nothing's being done. And when you're seeing the council do so much for the Wildcats rink and managing to get that back up and running, it looks even better, and we've managed to implement some stuff, and we've only done that in 3 months. It kind of puts a dumper on the Planet Ice and how the Basingstoke rink has just been let to rot, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's just a case of no one wants to do anything and they just keep passing it between everyone. No one wants to put their finger down and just say, right, we're going to do this and we're going to do it by this time.
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest problem. Is obviously with Swindon, it was a clear plan and it came into effect straight away. Yeah. But in Basingstoke, it's literally a total opposite. They just keep passing it around the party. Because there's too many people involved, I think, and it's just there's no clear leader within the rebuild of the rink. So, but it's a bit annoying when you get told stuff and you get told that you're not going to have a team for a season and they're going to be refurbing the rink and there's been nothing done, which is quite annoying.
Yeah, it is. False promises are the worst, aren't they? You'd rather them just tell you how it is and say, look, we don't actually think it will be ready for then. And you'd much prefer that. Charlie, have you got anything to say on the rink? I know we've covered it many times in the podcast.
I don't really think Basingstoke are going to come back, if I'm being honest, unless a new rink gets built.
Yeah.
This is the sad truth, really. I know people obviously want to hold on to the fact of it, but Planet Ice just don't really care about English hockey, and that's life, sadly.
The last bit, 4,000 Count and put a theory out. I think we all disagree with it, if we're being honest. He put the theory out that no Bison in 24-25, obviously due to the rink. Bristol Pitbulls to the NIHL oneself because they're extremely uncompetitive in the NIHL, and we'll talk about Bristol in a minute. And they suggested making a team out of the Bristol, calling them the Bristol Bison, Dan. Dan, I'll come to you first because I think I get he's trying to make a theory, and fair enough if he thinks that could happen. But I don't think that's realistic. I think Bristol are actually one of the wealthier teams in the league. They've got a really nice rink. They've got a good fan base, a good following. They're not having the greatest of seasons this season. They've struggled in many games, but they are going for a rebuild. It's only their second season in the league. I think it'd be very harsh to just push them down to the league below and create a whole new team. What do you think?
Yeah, and the thing is, obviously, if you're pushing them down and making this rebranded Bison, I think it's just a waste of time anyway. Because I don't think I've seen a lot of things saying a lot of Bainstoke fans won't travel all the way to Bristol.
No.
I mean, if we were going to have a Bison team in Bristol, I would travel, but even if I'm the only one. But yeah, I think it'd just be a waste of time, and I think it's just stupid. I
Yeah.
think leave Bristol as it is. Obviously, we don't want another Southern team going down and then
No.
bringing in a team that's probably not going to do anything anyway.
Yeah.
It's just a way. It's just a waste. I think Bristol, obviously, they've got some young, exciting players, and I think just to slow them down and throw them down the league, I think it's just a waste. Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie, we'll talk about Bristol in a second. Obviously, a tough Sunday game. Again, same lines as Dan, are you?
Why would you move a Bristol team which gets top 5 fans in the league
Yeah.
down to the NIHL one? It doesn't make sense. I get we want to try and make like Twitter talk, but like they're doing well, Bristol, attendance wise. Yeah, they're not performing on the ice yet, but I think there's many reasons to that. And anyway, like let's not kick a team wireless down. They've had Dean Skins in goal, who hasn't been confident in the recent weeks. They did manage to get a bit back together. It doesn't seem like the dressing room's fully molded. And just give them a little bit of time, give them another 2 years, get their feet under the door. And we've seen in hockey, and I think this is one thing which frustrates me when people talk about Bristol. We've seen in hockey, the most important thing for a hockey team is their core, the players who live in the place, the players who breathe the place. And that's what Bristol was slowly trying to build. Your Lipsies, your Jay Warrens, them players, it's going to take time. Like
Ben
these players
Norton's,
don't
Jacob
spawn
Whitesay.
overnight.
Yeah.
So let them develop, let them build their own core, and stop putting rumours. Just let them develop, let them play. Like they're not going to stay at the bottom.
I get it's only a theory. And as you said, it creates conversation, but I just can't see it happening. I think that would be quite silly. And we'll actually go on to Bristol. We'll start talking about this weekend. So this weekend, the Bristol Pitbulls, they actually gave Peterborough Phantoms a cracking game on Saturday. They only lost 4-3. Harewood scored an absolute brilliant goal, by the way, coast to coast, stuck it top bins, dangled a couple players. He does that once every few games, doesn't he, lads? But they gave him a good game on Saturday, and then on Sunday, the away game. I know they didn't have Lydiard. Obviously, you said they had Skins in goal. They've had to sign him because Smittle's gone, and Norton's been at the GB thing. But they did lose 11-1 against the Seahawks. Not a great result. But it's shown on Saturday they can give teams a game, and they got a 4-point weekend the other week, Dan. So, yeah, it's they're just going through a bit of a rebuild stage, aren't they, Bristol?
Yeah, it's they're sort of making a bit of leeway, and then they're sort of going back, and then they're going forward again, and then they're going back. They're just sort of going in and out. But as long as I think from Christmas onwards, I think that's when you need to start picking up the form. You can't keep winning games, losing games, winning games, losing games. So I think after Christmas, they really need to start looking at these games and thinking we need to get these wins now. We can't afford to lose these games, and especially with the goals that they're conceding as well. Obviously, I think they conceded double figures as well the other weekend. I think they're the most team to have conceded double figures this season.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think they just really need to concentrate to the second half of the season now.
Yeah, Charlie, I just wanted to say this as well. People are saying they're a mess. People are ripping into them, or some people, sorry, I'm speaking of some people. But they're literally 2 points off Solway, and everyone's bigging up Solway and how it's great to have Solway in the league, a new team, but they're literally 2 points off Solway, and it's only their second season as well. I just can't see why people are kicking them while I'm down. Do you know what I mean? They're still in a rebuild stage, and they're only 2 points off Solway, but everyone wants to blow on Solway's trumpet. And this is I'm on the side that both of them should be in the league, and there's both a rebuild stage.
And also, Bristol were in a hockey place, and people forget this. People don't really look into it. In a place where there was never hockey.
No.
So you've got no local players apart from a couple Swindon lads who play for them.
And a
Whereas
Brea who
Solway,
was retired 3 years ago.
yeah, whereas Solway, they have local Scots players who want to play for them, who were around the area in Craig Peacock, etc. So for Bristol, they were literally rebuilding from nothing. Like Hull, for example, they had local players who wanted to play for them. Whereas Bristol is the first rebuild I remember in a long, 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 long time.
You
I
had to get
can't
some
think
from
of,
Swindon.
apart from Leeds was the only team which did it, but Leeds had players in Yorkshire around them. Um, there was no local players, and it's going to take time for them to get them. Maybe players like Juha Lindgren and Jay Warren and Lipsy and Jacob Whitesay and maybe one of the Bradley brothers and Norton. They may develop into these core players who live in Bristol, but it's very difficult to build a team when you have nothing to start off with.
Yeah.
Because they didn't. They had no one. So be patient with them. They're not as bad as everyone makes out. I think Bristol are decent at home, but they do struggle away. They do struggle away, and they do find the away games difficult. But in my opinion, they've got a great leader in Feezy. I really love Feezy. Really nice guy. Spoke really highly. They've got some vets in that dressing room who will help them out. They've got a great goalie, a great young goalie who they can invest in, and their team's very young. So if they keep hold of these players, they let them develop in the National League, it won't be long until people are saying, "Oh, how Bristol got so many good players on their team," and then people will be forgetting about the fact that they said that Bristol shouldn't be in our league.
Yeah.
Like,
they've gone through a lot of changes. I don't want to throw some coaches under the bus. I know Jamie Ellison's taken a lot of flack on Twitter and Facebook, but I don't want to throw any coaches on the bus. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If it's not, then they move on, and that's absolutely fine. I hate toxicity, especially in a league where it's literally a semi-pro league and it's there for entertainment and for fans to enjoy their local team. It's not like football. It's not as much pressure like it is with football and the Man Uniteds and the Chelseas. It's just a semi-professional game, which should be professional, I think. But they've got other jobs, and we just got to enjoy it and have fun. And yeah, I hate toxicity. I don't know about you lads. I absolutely hate it. Anyway, let's move away from Bristol because we've talked about them a lot. We'll go on to the Wildcats because the rink is finally back. We had 2 games at the Link Centre. We had a couple of scares in the games, them having to quickly fix the ice. I think they're just slowly increasing the millimetres of the ice because you can't just do it all in one go. But a brilliant game on the Saturday. I know you were resting, Dan, because you had jet lag on the Saturday, but you did come on the Sunday. But an 8-2 win, the first game back at the Link Centre, Charlie. It was good, wasn't it? And it was, I know Sheffield had a lot of players out and they didn't play at their best, but we were very, very good, weren't we?
Yeah, we're a good team, a very good hockey team. And yeah, Gail Colby stood out to me that game. And a good weekend.
Yeah, Gale getting a hat trick on his first game back, his first league game at the Link Centre. That was nice to see. Malazinski obviously showing his class. But I wanted to bring up one player in particular, Reed Sayers. I know you watched him on the Sunday, Dan, but he was specifically really well on the Saturday where he got his goal. He got a couple of assists as well. He is really kicking on. He got a player of the month as well, Dan. He's getting that nice link up with Colby and Labuele, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, looking at I watched out in New York. I watched that game versus Sheffield.
Oh yeah.
With you, and then watched that one yesterday as well. And I really like what you're doing with your lines. To be honest, I think your lines are really well balanced, and I think the more experienced players really go well with the younger players. And I think you've got a really good combination of like skilled and there's just so many different hockey players all in one team, and I think you've just really made them work with the lines as well.
And that showed on the Sunday because it was an absolutely fantastic game. There's some penalties which we didn't agree with, but you get them in games. We're not going to talk about that. It was a brilliant game, Charlie, end to end. Both teams trying to suss each other out. I thought both goalkeepers were really, really good, especially Rennie. I thought Rennie was fantastic, and that was the Rennie we love to see every game. There were so many standout performances. Malazinski, I know we bang on about him, but he scored 2. And then on the other side, we got your guy. I know we like him as well, but Dan, you picked him out early. Bo Neely was fantastic in defence. Matt Cowlett scored a beauty. Charlie, it was just a phenomenal game. Unfortunately, we did come out of it with only 1 point, and we hit the post and crossbar about 4 or 5 times. But on the whole, both teams deserved at least a point.
Yeah, we're a wagon at the moment, like, and it just shows how good Leeds are. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how they managed to do it. Like, they had 13 skaters on the night, and their top six just managed to keep them in the game. Gospel was good, Bo Neely was good, and Leeds managed to clutch up. And Swindon, no team deserved to lose that game.
No.
Both teams were really good. Howlett's goal was a moment of brilliance, and we really did get unfortunate hitting the bar and post quite a few times. But for me,
overtime, Malas for the hat trick.
but for me, like, I'm just really happy Swindon are a club, but not just the fact that we're a club. We're flipping sick at hockey. Like, we're playing some good hockey right now, and we just took Leeds, in my opinion, the best team in the league on their day, toe to toe till the end of a game, and debatably should have won it. So fair play to us. Fair play to Leeds as well. Boyce is a great sign, and he's sick. And just Leeds' top six is a joke, and yeah, they are good. And
one thing which is a bit annoying, Eddie Bebris did pick up a knock. We don't know what the injury is, but he was walking after the game when he got dressed back into his clothes, so it didn't look terribly, but it was a big loss, and we had to put Russ Cowley into D because Jamie Smith's out as well for now. So we were playing 4D men, and Cowley was covering at D, and we did that for the last 2 periods. And Dan, I thought we still kept up a good fight, and we had to switch the lines up a lot as well. So players were playing with players who didn't normally play with each other just because of this injury.
Yeah, like I say, with so many, like, again, Cowley can still do a job even in D. He's got that experience to he can just play any position, and that's for the players that you want. And obviously you've got obviously you were saying about the players that haven't played with each other, they just automatically just link up because they just know hockey. And I think that's something that Swindon have always sort of had. They've always sort of had them players that just know what they're doing. You can put them online with anyone, and they'll still do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I've been to a lot of games this season. Obviously, I went to 2 MK versus Leeds games, and I think yesterday was definitely the best game I've watched this season.
Yeah, it was end to end. As I said, both goalies are good. Conga as well. It's the first time we watched him. He's a bit of a ratty player, and he loves the chirp. One of the funny moments, I don't know if he listens to the podcast, but he was picking on Luke Johnson, and Luke Johnson's a small lad. And then as soon as Gale come up to him, he skated away and didn't want anything to do with Gale. So that was quite funny. But I thought we did quite well with shutting some of their big players down. Barron, Brown, and Conga. Obviously, they're quality players, but I thought we shut them down really well. But it was Blazer and Matt Howlett who stood out, and they were fantastic. Let's move on to the other games because we've not got too long left. MK Lightning, they only had 1 game this weekend. They got the job done against the Bees, 5-2. Liam Stewart's picking up the points, Charlie. We've got to play them on New Year's. It's going to be tough, innit, for anyone to beat them at their rink. But it has been done.
Oh, I can't wait to play them at the links, Anna.
Oh,
can't wait. Bring it on. That's what I say.
Considering they had quite a few players out with GB as well, I know their depth is unbelievable. And maybe this is why they've got all these players. But they got the win, they got the job done. But the Bees on the Sunday, Dan, an absolutely huge win to finally break the run of losing games. They were 3-2 down against the Telford Tigers. Vitali scores with a minute to go, and then Balaz wins it in overtime. They didn't have to badge that game, so the other 2 imports stepping up, and that's a massive win for them. I think it's a long time coming. They get a win on the board finally again.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the clip of the overtime winning goal.
Yeah,
you can see the passion and how much it meant to them. They really wanted that win, and obviously I've got the Bison boys at the Bees, so I'm always rooting for them, and hopefully they can carry on, get a few more wins under their belt before Christmas.
Yeah, we play them on the Thursday as well, Swindon versus Bees, so that'll be an interesting one.
Yeah, that'll be a good game. I'll be there.
Yeah. Do you have any more
it's always good. It's always good playing the Bees. They're one of them teams that you just never know what you're going to get from them.
Yeah.
They just sort of, they turn up, they're good, and they'll get the gritty wins. They'll grind out games. They just got
Yeah.
the players for it. You just got to play a smart game and just don't get lured in by them.
Yeah. Right, Charlie's had to shoot off, but me and Dan are going to cover the rest of the games of this weekend and look at the few fixtures which are coming this Christmas period. We'll move on to the Hull Seahawks next, who had a 4-point weekend. I think, were they the only team to get a 4-point weekend because no one played 2 fixtures? I think they were, Dan. So, yeah, Hull 4-point weekend. That's massive for them. It secures that 3rd place as well. They've qualified for the cup as well, which is huge for them. Matty Davies said to me in that whole Seahawks special that they're going to be competing for those trophies. And yeah, they absolutely pumped Bristol on the Sunday, and it showed the quality they've got this season compared to last season.
Yeah, they've come across leaps and bounds from last season. Really, I think everyone sort of knew they were going to, with all the rumours flying around of all the returning like Pirates players coming back and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think they've definitely taken this season by storm so far. And they're the perfect team for these cup competitions and stuff like that. They're a gritty grinder team, and they'll come up. They've got players that will come up big in big times in the game. So
yeah, one of those players, Emil Speck, he gets our Player of the Week. He got 4 goals and 4 assists this weekend. He's found his home, innit? I know he was. Pardon me. I know he was good at Swindon and he got us a lot of goals, but I don't think he quite fit our system. I think he accepted that and he moved on. And Matty Davies, he said to me that Speck would fit their system, and he's been brilliant this season.
yeah, he's loving it. I've seen all his Twitter and his social media and all the videos of him getting beer after the game, and yeah, he's loving it in Hull.
Yeah.
He's but that's what you want. You want your imports loving it where they are, because
Yeah.
obviously they're there for a long time. There's not much for them to do. Obviously, if they're just coming over, they've not been over for a long time. Obviously, they don't have a job, so you want them to be loving it where they are, and
Yeah.
they definitely are. Both, I think, all 3 of their imports are loving it.
Yeah, I think that story's quite funny. Every time Hull win, Speck comes off the ice and he's literally got a beer ready for him off the ice. The fans have got beers ready for him, and they've got Speck t-shirts as well. I love what they've done at Hull,
Yeah.
and fair play as well to Matty Davies, because there was question marks on whether he'd be able to coach that team. But I think he's done really well, considering it's his first proper season of being that head coach of a team where he's not actually playing. And he's managed to keep that group of players who have quite a. You've got the likes of Bonner, you've got the likes of Chamberlain and Barmer as well. And I know they've had their moments this season, but he seemed to be able to keep the team quite. Oh, I can't find the word where they're not just loose cannons. You get what I mean?
Yeah, he's sort of disciplined.
He's found the line. He's found the line of winning games and using those kind of feisty moments in the right times.
Yeah, because obviously in some games, obviously players like that are perfect. Sometimes you need a few players that can just throw the body,
Oh, yeah.
sort of show players they're not messing around, and yeah, so them players are perfect. And it's just if you use them right, and obviously Mike Davies is using them right.
Yeah, Brock Bartholomew as well, Barmer, them 2 are just absolutely bossing it at the back. They're picking up assists, goals. Both of them were on the score sheet this weekend. And Finley Ulrich as well, I wanted to give him a shout out. I think he's been brilliant since stepping down to the NIHL. So yeah, that Hull just seem to be clicking at the moment, and we'll go into it in a minute, but it's going to be an absolute brilliant little double header this weekend with them and another team. The final couple results, obviously we spoke about the Lightning beating the Bees. On the Saturday, the Raiders beat the Telford Tigers 6-5 in overtime. So the Tigers losing both games in overtime this weekend. Hey, the Tigers, 2 points out of 4. It's not terrible. Obviously, they'd love to get a win, but I think that win was very big for the Raiders because they were needing a win just like the Bees were.
Yeah, 100%. I think Telford go into that weekend thinking they can beat both them teams, because obviously they're both on a pretty bad run at the moment. And I think they go into that weekend thinking we can get these 4 points. But the thing is, they come up big when they need to, and Raiders needed a win, Bees needed a win, and they just grinded it out. Obviously, got into the overtime, and you can tell it was just a massive grind from both teams.
Raiders seem to be scoring a lot more goals. The weekend before this weekend, they scored a lot of goals against the Pitbulls, didn't they? They just goal after goal after goal. So it seems like they are turning a bit of a corner in terms of scoring goals. They just need to sort out being able to control games a bit more, don't they? Because some of them are just going bonkers with the amount of goals back and forth there is.
Yeah, I think. I mean, if you look at how many players they have missing every game, I think
Yeah.
I haven't counted, but I think they have at least 7 a game missing. They haven't actually had their final roster, I think, for a game this season. Obviously, you've got both the goalies out at the moment. You had Norcliffe out. I think you had TJ Anderson out for a bit. Ashley Jackson out. Obviously, Ashley Jackson is a big player for the. He's got a good history with the sport. Obviously, he's a gold medal holder as well, so he's got a good head on him. And sometimes them smart players and sort of level-headed guys can help a lot.
Yeah, talking about the goalies as well. Good thing you brought that up. Smittle ended up playing for them this weekend, didn't he? Because James and Winterbank weren't available. I think they had little injuries. So Pitbulls ended up going to the Raiders. So they've been one of them teams where there's been a lot of changes, a lot of injuries. They've never been able to have that full team, as you said. So be interesting to see what they're like when they do get that full team. The final result was the Phantoms on the Saturday. Oh, sorry, I was wrong. The Phantoms got a 4-point weekend along with the Seahawks. They beat the Pitbulls 4-3 on Saturday, and they beat the Sharks 5-3 on the Sunday. It's games like that which can trip you up, but they've got the 4 points, so I think that's massive for them.
Yeah, I mean, picking up that's when you want to pick up the points. You're going against the bottom half of the table. You're expected. I'm sure Slava said to him that he's expecting 4 points from this weekend. And I think all the players obviously buy into that as well, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And apparently Jordan Marr's playing fantastic at the moment. So both Marr brothers having really good weekends for their teams. It's nice to see. I like Jordan and I love Rennie, obviously. So yeah, that's very nice to see. Those were and the final one was obviously the Steel Dogs Raiders. That was a bit of a fighting drama, as we mentioned earlier, but that ended up 4-2 to the Steel Dogs. So interesting there. We'll look at the fixtures for this weekend, and then we'll finally look at the league table. It's quite jiggedy-jaggedy around Christmas because obviously there's games on different days. Now, the Wildcats are playing another home game on the Thursday against the Bees. We mentioned it earlier. That should be a pretty good game. The last game against them at Bees Rink was quite a tight one, and it was a Malazinski masterclass which got us over the line. So that'll be an interesting one. And then on the Friday, we've got the Leeds Knights versus the Hull Seahawk, and then on the Saturdays, the return leg. So that's going to be the games of the weekend. And it was a bit chirpy between Swindon and Leeds, wasn't it, Dan? And if there's a team which is going to be chirpy back, it's Hull with the likes of Chamberlain, Barmer, Bonner. So I'd love to see Conga have a little chirp at the Seahawks players and see what happens.
Yeah, the thing is, in them sort of games, though, you can't afford to be losing them players to penalties and stuff like that. So you almost wonder if Davies is saying, obviously, just calm down, because you want to have your full roster for them games. You don't want to be losing halfway through and stuff like that, because I know the likes of Chamberlain and Bama can be a bit of a loose cannon sometimes. So, but you don't really want, obviously, they're your big guys, so you don't really want to be missing out without them.
I think it depends on how the game goes, really, on whether it's going to be that type of game, because I think you do need to bring that type of game sometimes if you want to beat the teams which are better than you. But Hull in their own rink, they're going to be tough to beat. What's the first one? The first one's at Leeds. So if Leeds do beat them at home on the Friday, I can see Hull giving them a really tough game on that Saturday, and the Hull fans will definitely make the barn a bit intimidating. But Leeds will get all their youngsters back. They'll get Ollie Endicott, they'll get Braden, and they'll get Perry back. So they'll have their full lineup. We don't know. I think Brown had some injury, but he's still playing on with it. So we'll see how he is. The other fixtures, Bristol, it just gets tougher for them, Dan. They've got the Lightning. They are at their own rink, and they play better at their own rink, but that's another tough game, isn't it, against MK?
Yeah, I mean, MK haven't been the best on the road this season, but unfortunately, I think I can only see that going one way.
Yeah,
with the current form.
I'd love it if Bristol win. I would love it.
You never know. You never know in this league. It could literally go. It literally depends on the night, where it could go. I mean, you can make all these assumptions like I just did, but it could go anyway.
One positive, they will have Ben Norton back, I think. He'll be back from GB. So if that's anything to take, if he can stand on his head, Bristol have definitely got a chance. So that'll be interesting. The other fixtures, The Raiders have got Solway. That's a huge game at the bottom of the table. Both teams need points. And then the Sheffield Steel Dogs against the Bees again, a massive game. That eighth playoff spot, their seventh, eighth playoff spot, that is going to be a dogfight to the end of the season, isn't it? Because there's so many teams which could get that final playoff spot, and 3 teams are going to have to miss out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who does miss out, to be honest, because as we can already see, like the teams at the bottom, they're grinding out the wins against teams that they need to beat.
Yeah.
Obviously, they know the importance of these games playing against the teams around them.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a no die attitude, really.
Yeah.
From everyone.
Yeah. We knew it would be closer and tighter, and that's what we want to see, really. We want to see that competitiveness, and everyone can beat everyone. Looking at the league table then, the MK Lightning are still top of the league by 2 points, but they have played 3 more games than the Leeds Knights. So it'll be interesting to see what it looks like once Leeds catch up on the games. The Peterborough Phantoms stay in 3rd place, but they've played 4 more games than the whole Seahawks and 5 more games than Swindon. But Swindon are going to catch up on all them home games this month. And then in the middle of the pack, you got Telford, you got the Steel Dogs on 20, the Bees on 20, you got the Raiders on 17, and Solway on 15, and then Bristol on 13. So it is very, very tight. If you had to make a prediction now, Dan, sorry for putting you on the spot, which team do you think is going to just clutch up? I think Telford will be all right in 6th, but then you've got Sheffield, Bees, Raiders, Solway, and Bristol. Only 2 of them can get it. At the moment, it's obviously Sheffield and Bees, but that can literally change within a few weeks, can't it?
Yeah, it can. I think if I was going to make a prediction now, I think I'd go with Solway.
Really?
Yeah, I think with obviously the addition of Callie Robertson as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think they're starting to pick up a few points, and if not, they're losing like close margin games as well. They're not getting blown out. Yeah, I think they're going to have a really strong end to the season.
It'll be interesting. We'll come back to it in a couple months' time when there's a couple months left of the season. Dan, anything else to add on that? There was one point I was going to make. I forgot to mention it earlier, where we were talking about teams losing their heads a bit and all these bans and having to be careful. That's one thing I'll say about Swindon. Touch wood, we won't do that, but we haven't been involved in any of that this season. We haven't even given ourselves a chance to even get given a ban, have we? And one of the major question marks on Gail Labuele, who got the most penalty minutes last season, was, is he going to get too many penalty minutes this season? Is he going to produce some hits which maybe are controversial? Some of them, maybe they're a bit hard. Some of them, which were perfectly fine hits, in my opinion. But that was the question mark, and he's not even had a single penalty for it, has he, really?
No, I think last season he was obviously the first time in the league.
Yeah.
So I think now he's in his 2nd season, he's sort of had time to sort of evaluate how the league works with the hits.
Yeah.
And obviously another thing, in Basingstoke, he was the guy. He was the main man. And I think he felt he had to do everything in that team, which I can see where he's sort of coming from. And I think he sort of thought he had to throw a few hits, and then he obviously got a bit like hot-headed. Yeah. And then he had to score goals, and then I think it all just got to him. And I think in Swindon, he can play his own game. Yeah, he's not having to throw his way around a lot. He can just play his own sort of role.
He's playing smart hockey, which benefits him, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, he's got a hitting in his game. That's just that's just how Gail plays. But I think obviously another thing with, like I said, with the league, he's had a season now to sort of play in it, 100%. And obviously he knows where to sort of stop. But he still throws a hard hit around. Yeah, which is always good to see,
especially when we're back at home as well. It really boosts the Swindon fans. I think I'll end it on this, actually. Watching the NHL and then watching our level, obviously there's a massive gap in terms of actual level of hockey. There's so much which goes into it. A little one I picked up on is whenever they get checked or hit on the boards, it's there for literally a second and then the puck's out, isn't it? Whereas sometimes in the NIHL, you see the puck in there for a good 5-6 seconds, even up to 10 seconds, and the referees aren't actually blowing their whistle now. But in the NHL, they just get out so quick. They're at one end to the other. the speed is absolutely phenomenal, isn't it? And if some of the checks were made in our league, which they're absolutely fine with in the NHL, oh my goodness, the amount of bans we'd see in the NHL if they had our league's rules would be a joke, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't even want to see what Dops would be like with some of them
Oh
hits.
my
I
goodness.
mean, just a few hits we saw on them 5 games, I think, is probably added up to about 25 games.
Yeah. And they were fine hits that literally
Yeah.
they get up and they go on again. And big up Saturday night, Sunday against Leeds last night. And absolutely, who did the hit? I've forgotten who it was, but it was on Reed Sayers.
Here, Dylan Hare, I
Yeah,
think.
Dylan Hare. Fantastic hit, absolutely crunch Reed, and fair play to Reed as well because he got straight back up, and that's what we want. We want hard hitting games which don't get called because they are fair checks. And Reed got straight back up, and it was a good check. You fair play, he had his head down, and that's the type of stuff you're seeing in the NHL all the time. In it, there was an absolutely brilliant hit, wasn't there? On what was it, Lindgren?
Yeah, and Barzal as well in the first game.
That, to be fair, that
There
did
was
turn
some
into
really
a fight.
beautiful hits. Yeah, there was some good hits there.
But that, I wanted to bring that up because the level is absolutely. If you do get a chance, everyone who's watching, to go watch an NHL game, please do. It is so much different in person to what it is on TV as well. Being there in person is phenomenal. Obviously, it's Americanized. They got the big screen. I absolutely love it. And I definitely do it again. We'll definitely try and get one planned for next year, maybe in Canada, and watch Edmonton and Calgary or Tampa Bay, Florida, whatever we choose to do. But yeah, Dan, fantastic holiday, a good little podcast. I know Charlie was absolutely shattered. Everyone go and follow our socials at Macca's Talk Hockey. We've just hit 400 followers on the Instagram. Let's try and push for 500. We appreciate that. We've only been up and going for a few months. So yeah, fantastic to see. Dan, thanks for joining me.
No worries.
And yeah, we'll catch you next weekend. We'll try and get some interviews planned again, but I thought we'd just talk about our holiday a bit and get back into the swing of things without an interview. And yeah, quite a long episode this week. So we'll see you next weekend, and hopefully I'll have an interview. Peace.
See you later.